Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips is again calling for the creation of new legislation to help fight crime in Jamaica. He says wiretapping alone is not enough to catch criminals. He made the call at Monday's signing of the National Consensus on Crime Agreement.
In this regard, I'll mention once again the need for a National Intelligence Act, among other things, that really keeps pace not only with the technological developments that are taking place. We are, and without being critical of the need to modernize and update the Interception of Communications Act, the fact is that the technologies that we're working with today have moved way beyond that. You're not moving through any telecoms provider to be able to intercept. We have communications. We have to be able to have appropriate legislation which protects the privacy of citizens while at the same time ensuring accountability for those who have access to and manage the intelligence services in the country.
The Police Federation says the plan to put members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF on contracts which would only be renewed on their performance is nothing new. Chairman of the Police Federation, Sergeant Petrero, says police officers are currently retained on a 5-year contractual basis.
JCF, by extension, does not have a problem with performance-based contract renewal because we believe that that is being largely practiced now. I suspect that the Oversight Committee would look at the system that currently obtains and make recommendations as to how we can improve this. But we believe that the JCF is far ahead regarding that recommendation. The recommendation, which I have seen, has to do with ensuring that there is greater review over performance before renewal.
The National Consensus on Crime document also highlighted that any officer found guilty of involvement in corruption or facilitating criminal activity will be removed from their posts and criminal charges could be laid. Sergeant Rowe says that's already instituted within the JCF. He, however, noted that the role of the Federation goes deeper.
It's so rigorous that even after someone has been acquitted from a court of law, they can be charged internally for allowing themselves to be charged, which is a dismissible offense. So the Jamaica Constabulary Force is one of those institutions within Jamaica that is far ahead in terms of our approach to criminal allegation, criminal conduct, corruption, in terms that we take action very quickly against our members where they are involved or alleged to be involved in any form of wrongdoing.
Under the consensus, the parties have also agreed to the establishment of a strong internal affairs division to screen and monitor police officers. A man who was listed as most wanted by the Westmoreland Police is now in custody. Isaiah Perry, also known as Cat, was captured by the security forces during an operation this morning. He was wanted for the murder of Randall Brown in Peggy Barry, Westmoreland in November 2016. Mr. Perry was also being sought for arson, shooting with intent, as well as illegal possession of a firearm in relation to an incident in April this year in Kings Valley, Westmoreland. The parliamentary opposition is calling for the government to provide an update on plans to have isolation facilities in hurricane shelters to deal with possible cases of COVID-19. Opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy, says there is also a need for the government to increase the number of shelters. This is to facilitate physical distancing should the island be affected by a hurricane. Dr. Guy was speaking this morning on Power 106 FM's Morning Agenda program.
I've not been made aware of any changes in it. As far as I know, and I can only speak with my experience in my parish, there have not been any increase in numbers of shelters. So we have a challenge right there in that, as you clearly indicated, with the need for social physical distancing, with the need for people to occupy these spaces, there's definitely going to be need for more shelters to be morphed into this arrangement. And this is what we're not seeing yet.
Water levels at the Mona Reservoir and the Hermitage Dam have seen marginal improvements. The National Water Commission says the water level at the Hermitage Dam is now at 36.2%, while for the Mona Reservoir it's at 32.9%. However, there's this warning from Andrew Cannon, the Corporate Public Relations Manager at the NWC.
These figures represent a slight rise. We still need a lot of rainfall. We need prolonged, sustained rainfall to get to the levels where we really should be. There are many persons who, because they see the rainfall, they make an assumption that yes, the levels are rising. Many times there is not an automatic correlation between rain falling and the rising of levels in the systems. Why? The rain has to fall in the catchment area for there to be that rise in the water that we are expecting. Therefore, one can't say because they're seeing rain in the corporate area means all is fine. No, that is a false assumption.
Cannon says a scientific approach is being used to determine whether the prohibition order now in place will be extended.
We are watching the levels, and if we see that there is a rise to a level where we need them to be, we could see some form of adjustment. We are not there yet. Therefore, water should only be used for essential domestic purposes. So those water parties, they are a no-no, and all extravagant activities, they are a no-no. Therefore, conservation is still the watchword.
Vendors in Mount Salem St. James are counting their losses after the police pulled the plug on an event on Crawford Street on Sunday. Residents have questioned the motive, arguing that other events were allowed in other communities in St. James.
Gilbert Wilson demonstrates what the races would have looked like on Crawford Street, Mount Salem. The residents dubbed the event a Grand Prix. However, instead of cars, this is what they would use to race downhill. Before the event could get off the ground, residents say the security forces halted the festivities.
I one of the seller them, and then we there for Saturday night. We put up stage, we do everything. The police then pass through. Police never say anything to him. When we do everything, so the man, we start the race them for the picnic, them for enjoy ourselves back in Crawford Street. We don't see police and soldiers, they come in pan, we like say, we commit crime in Crawford Street. Say, nothing not go on. We obey by them. And we pack up with things and go.
Just as the youth them sit down in a starting block and the police van say drive round. So they have to get up and then in block the road with the van and then say he can't keep again.
Now checks by our news centre reveal that no permit was sought for the event. But residents believe the police should have allowed it to go on anyway.
Yes, I'm going to go on. Go on and make you enjoy yourself. Everybody come up and enjoy themselves, you know. Understand? Everybody come up and enjoy themselves, you know. Young and old. I'll leave them. See one of them, yeah? Yeah? Enjoy yourself. Not now go on. We enjoy yourself, drink a rum and all these things.
Vendors particularly are hopping mad as they were banking on the event to sell their goods.
Me no take my liquor them pan consignment no. Put all like people them liquor in our water, ice water no. When we go get money for pay for them no.
The Minister of Local Government, Desmond McKenzie, was strident in his warning to promoters last week. He stressed that events without a permit would not be allowed to take place. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We have many more stories when we return. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. There are concerns about whether stakeholders in the agricultural sector will be able to recover from losses due to the cancellation of the 2020 staging of the Denby Agricultural Show. Details in this report.
While speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica on Tuesday, President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, Lenworth Fulton, revealed they have lost over $40 million and the parish nearly $15 million, but the country has seen a bigger loss.
For the country, it's really about a $2 billion loss.
Mm-hmm.
And for employment, it's anywhere between 800 to 1,000 people that would get employment directly from the Denby operation.
The parish of Clarendon depends on Denby to bring in income to the GAS to keep things going. When asked whether the government could intervene, Mr. Fulton said it already played a role.
You see, government subvention to the JS only pay the staff.
Yeah.
Nothing else that we do at the JS comes from government resources. So they pay the staff based on an arrangement from 1940 that Act the JS, Jamaica Culture Society Act, when they took over most of our function and rolled them into the Ministry of Agriculture.
While acknowledging that small farmers are also impacted during this time, he appealed to market vendors to stop price gouging.
You cannot be selling a head of lettuce for $1,000. I see 12 occupied with the seeds in them for $247 in supermarket. I'm buying a pound of yam for $350. I see one avocado pear hardly bigger than my face, $350. This is not caused by any drought, you know. This is caused now by greed.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Attorneys are again facing the threat of stronger laws relating to the source of funds from their clients. On Friday, the appeal court upheld the Jamaican Bar Association challenge of amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Act, which would have forced them to report instances of financial crimes uncovered when dealing with their clients. The Bar Association claimed the legislation would breach lawyer-client privilege. However, the National Consensus on Crime, signed yesterday by the opposition, government and other stakeholder groups, is again seeking to address the issue. It says additional legislation is to be introduced to ensure that attorney-client privilege cannot be extended to managing funds or any activity that could be used to conceal money laundering. It says it will introduce legislation to ensure attorneys cannot be paid with the proceeds of crime or any other contaminated source of funds. And in sports, TVJ Sports understands that Ramal Lewis has joined Jermaine Blackwood as the players who will replace Andre McCarthy and Javor Royal in the Jamaica Talawa squad for the 2020 season of the CPL. As reported by TVJ Sports last week, neither McCarthy nor Royal traveled with the delegation today to Trinidad and Tobago, as both were contacts of a positive COVID-19 case. Blackwood was a member of the Talawa squad, which won the CPL in 2013. The 2020 season of the CPL is set to run from August 18 to September 10, solely in the Twin Island Republic in a biosecure bubble due to COVID-19 restrictions. And that's it for the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Do remember to join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.